Hey everybody, today we're going to be talking about something really cool for your terrarium and everything, and that is rocks. I thought it was going to be cooler in my head. So when it comes to rocks, you have two options. You have real rocks and fake rocks. And today we're going to be comparing, contrasting the two of them, getting some pros, some cons, and doing some pretty cool scientific stuff. So let's go ahead and get into it, starting with the fake rock. Fake rock, or fox rocks, are as simple as they sound. They are fake rocks, usually made of a polyester blend. Now, what is that polyester blend or that resin compound, you may ask? That's a great question that literally no one will tell me because it's proprietary, meaning it's a secret made by the company and they're not going to tell anybody. So anywhere you go, if you look at them at Petco, PetSmart, any pet stores, or even Universal Rocks, you will see that it just simply says Fox Rock or a resin rock. And that all just means the same thing. It's basically plastic. So some pros and cons about Fox rocks. Pros are they are lightweight and you can get bundles of them for pretty darn cheap. Another pro is, of course, because it is a plastic, it's mold and mildew resistant. So it's not as many porous areas or as many bumps and everything as a real rock. So, of course, it's going to be pretty smooth to the touch and it will not collect a lot of mold or mildew. Another pro is, of course, it being lightweight. You can stick it anywhere in the terrarium without having to worry about it falling and injuring your animal. Now, of course, if it falls, it might spook them, but I mean, even this dude is super lightweight. And if it were to fall on even one of my crested geckos, yes, they'd probably drop their tails because they get scared, but it's not going to break their bones or anything, unlike a real rock. Another super cool thing about fake rocks is because they are casted in molds, that mold is usually a real rock that somebody finds, they make a mold out of it, and then what they do is they pour the resin in there, let it cure it, and then pop it out of the mold. All that to say, you can get hundreds, if not thousands, of the same exact looking rock, and it will not differ. So now that we know all about the pros, let's start with the cons. In my opinion, they're too smooth. Yes, you can get some fake rocks with a corner or so, but overall they're pretty darn smooth to the touch and they won't necessarily help with shedding. So now that we know some of the pros, let's start with some of the cons. Con number one, and that is my biggest con in my opinion, it is that they are too smooth. They don't have many sharp edges to help cling onto a shedding reptile. Now, it might help somewhat, but not as much as a real rock in my personal opinion. Another thing is because they are casted and they have to go through quality assurance or QA, something might slip through the cracks. They can test everything and they do test everything, but even with stringent tests, we know even like Lego where they put pasta in bags, you see stuff slip through the cracks. What is a defect, you might ask? Well, the resin might not cure in a proper way, creating more of a hot spot in one area where there's basically whatever blend they use, it could cure in a weird way. And if it's used as a heating bell or a heating rock, what it will do is kind of capture all the heat in that one area and not dissipate it through the rest of the rock, and it could create some dangerous hotspots. Another thing is fading. These can fade pretty darn easily if left under UVB or in direct sunlight, unlike a real rock where those things have been outside for millions of years and they don't necessarily fade their color. Another con is if you do not go through Universal Rocks or a pet store and you go to a place like Home Depot or Lowe's or any home improvement store, you might see fake rocks. Those are not necessarily safe. Some are, yes, but others, if it is injected molding, or of course, if it is kind of compressed plastic into a rock, that is actually dangerous as they can leach the plastic or the chemicals into the terrarium or whatever tank you have, and that could harm the animal. One thing that I do have to mention is, though these are pretty strong, if they do break, they can create small bits of plastic in the tank, and you want to remove all of that, because if they ingest it, it's going to get stuck in your animal, and you'll probably have to either, one, hope they pass it, or two, take them to the vet because they ingested something that they cannot digest, and they cannot pass through their poop. So let's get into the cleaning process of a fake rock. Cleaning fake and real rocks are pretty much identical. Real rocks do take a little bit longer. We'll get to that in a second. But fake rocks, usually reptile safe cleaner. I use vinegar water solution, or, because it is a fake rock, I have heard people use very dilute bleach solutions. And I mean very dilute bleach solutions. But I don't recommend that because I personally don't do that. I just use vinegar and water solutions, and I just let it soak, scrub it off, you're good. But one thing I did realize is if you scrub with too much force with a scour pad, like one of the Scotch-Brite guys, or of course, if you use too hard of bristles, you can scratch these. And if you do scratch it, it'll create little grooves and everything, which can break off some plastic and or create little pockets for mold and mildew to to grow in. And that's just overall not good. So make sure you scrub lightly, and even if there is some pretty stuck on poop or anything like that, let it soak and then scrub it off. Because if you use too much force or an improper brush, you can scratch and damage the fake rock. Wardrobe change, because I totally lost footage and I didn't realize it until I went to check the recording, and I saw that I was talking to a screen in a camera that wasn't doing anything other than just sitting there. So, totally same day. Let's go ahead and talk about the pros and cons of a real rock. My personal opinion, that is a major pro of real rocks, is that they have rougher edges to help with shedding when it comes to any reptile. And of course, they come in so many other shapes, they come in colors. Yes, you can get fake rocks that look like real rocks in just about every regard, but it's just the real thing for me. So I do thoroughly enjoy a real rock due to them being a little bit rougher around the edges. Another pro to a real rock is that because it's real, you can get them anywhere. You can use aquarium gravel, you can use aquarium inserts, you can even go outside and find a really pretty rock that you want to use in your terrarium. But there's a caveat to that, we'll get into later. But, I mean, real rocks, in my opinion, are a little bit better than fake rocks, but there are some cons that kind of outweigh the pro. So con number one is they are heavy. So you can't really use it as hanging decor or leaning up on something, because if something causes that rock to fall, it's either going to damage your tank or hurt your animals, and you don't want to do that. So you want to make sure that it's always just at the bottom of your tank in the substrate, and it's not doing anything other than just sitting there. Another con is they're more expensive. This one piece of slate was the same price as a bag of fake rocks. This guy was $10. But of course, if you do go outside, they could be free. And that gets into another con, which is cleaning. So rocks are very porous, meaning there's a lot of little holes in there, and it can absorb liquid. And it can also harbor bacteria. So you want to make sure that if you do clean them, that you do it thoroughly. And by thoroughly, I mean it usually takes a few days with specific cleaners that are meant for cleaning rocks and keeping your reptiles safe. I don't remember what one of them is off the top of my head, but if I find it, I'll link it down in a pinned comment. But like I said, it usually takes a few days because you don't want to use any harsh cleaners, because as the rock kind of sits, it can slowly leach out those chemicals or whatever you used into the terrarium, which can cause pretty bad effects to your animals, and or if you have any plants, could kill your plant. Another con to real rocks is, of course, that because they're real, they can be sharp. And if you pick up a rock and you do the whole feeling and everything like that, which you should be doing to make sure that there are no sharp points, there could still be sharp points that you can't find, but your reptile gladly will, and that can cut their scales, cut their skin, and hurt them. So if you do notice that your reptile does have some nicks and everything on them, you want to make sure that that's not coming from the rocks. Well, not coming from anything, but specifically the rocks that you just put in their tank. So you always want to make sure that, one, the rock is incredibly clean, and two, it's not sharp to where it could harm your animal in any way. So much like fake rocks, real rocks are pretty easy to clean so long as you clean them beforehand and it's safe to go in the terrarium. Upkeep cleaning is pretty easy. All you really have to do is, again, use a vinegar water solution or a reptile safe cleaner. Yes, it can take a little bit longer just because they are more porous, but real rocks have more durability and they can take a little bit more of a rough scrubbing than a fake rock can. So let's go ahead and talk about thermal conductivity of these rocks. What I did is I devised a very simple test. What I did was I took a 75 watt heat emitter and a 75 watt heat bulb, and I put it in above a 5-gallon tank. So the experiment went as follows. What I did is I ran 3 tests. Test number 1 was just the control, which was just dirt, no rock whatsoever. We just wanted a baseline of what the bulbs could do within a time frame. Test number 1 was a fake rock, and test number 2 was a real rock. And what I did was I spent 30 minutes warming the enclosure up with both the bulb and the emitter. And after 30 minutes, we then just killed the heat source and then waited another 30 minutes for everything to cool down. And what I did was I measured every 5 minutes to see what the temperature was. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at those numbers. So let's go ahead and look at warming up with the light bulb first. As you can see, everything is basically neck and neck between, I would say, the 10 and the 20 minute range, and then it kind of falters off at the very end with the control of just dirt being the coolest. The real rock is a little bit cooler than the fake rock by about 3 to 4 degrees, which was pretty darn interesting to me. Now let's look at the warming up for the heat emitter, and my goodness, the control took off like a rocket. It did start to plateau near the end of the test about at the 20-minute mark, but as you can see, it took a little bit longer for the real and the fake rock to actually start warming up. And in this one, the real rock was warmer than the fake rock, but other than that, being a slight 5-degree difference, it was basically the same. And now let's get into the cooling down. And as we can see for the light bulb, as soon as that bulb turned off, everything did start to plummet in temperature, and the control only took 10 minutes to reach room temperature again. But as we can see, again, the real and the fake were neck and neck the entire time, with a margin of error of less than 2 degrees, which was pretty darn cool if you ask me. So let's go ahead and look at the cooling down for the heat emitter, and wow, nothing retained heat. I mean, within the first 5 minutes, everything basically just plummeted to room temperature and then slowly went down to its idle temperature, which, I mean, this graph speaks for itself. It's literally the same, even with the control. So the conclusion was the same, which I honestly wasn't expecting, but I'm thoroughly happy to see that there's not that much of a difference, though. Before you get on me, because I know you all will, the weight of this and the weight of this are completely different. And I know that mass does matter sometimes. In the future, I can and will revisit this subject when I have more time on my hands and if more people show interest in these type of things, because I honestly didn't know, and I don't think most people have, just, 6 hours to just kill during the day? Most of them want to do something like, I don't know, enjoy the day and not spend every 5 minutes measuring the temperature of dirt or a rock. But hey, I did it, and those were my results, which I wasn't expecting, but I found pretty cool. So what is better? You may be asking yourself, and I was asking myself the same thing. They're the same. Reason being, they have pros and cons that contrast with the other. So this has pros that this has a con of, and this has a pro that this has a con of. So if we're just taking everything at face value, this would be more for decorating. I would use this as a backdrop, put it on the back, put on some foam, glue it, whatever. That way, 1, it's mold and mildew resistant, and 2, it doesn't require that much hard of a scrubbing, so you can stick it wherever, and because it's lighter weight, you don't weigh your tank down. And then this guy, use at the bottom of your tank, because you want to have something that your reptile can shed on. It's whatever you want to do. So, I mean, I wasn't expecting them to be the same. I was expecting something different. But, I mean, that's what science does. Sometimes we test and we get a different answer than what we were thinking. So, I mean, you can use this as an informational guide, or you could just use the charts. It doesn't matter to me. But like I said, if this type of video is pretty cool to you, then I will make more of these because I have some ideas and everything that I want to do more tests of different things, like what a heat bulb versus emitter can do and everything like that. So if you do like that type of idea, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. And have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching the video. Bye.